Gluten-free, dairy-free, no seed oils, no red 40, juice cleanses, bone broth, intermittent fasting, low fat, low carb. Sound familiar? Well, if you've perused social media at least once recently within the last, 20 years, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you haven't already slipped down the slope of attaining a quote unquote wellness lifestyle, you'll probably realize this is all a business model that sells you supplements and a certain idea of health. It's no secret that America is obsessed with weight, wellness, diets, and food. I'm going to focus on America specifically, but I'm sure this is similar across most countries. Let me tell you, this is not a new concept at all. Let's take a journey down the brief history of wellness. The concept of fatness being portrayed as a negative thing one should change about themselves originated in the rise of airplanes. It was a disadvantage to have a fuller body because they were focused on the efficiency of flying. In our reading by Schwartz, the author mentioned how, between 1880 and 1920, gluttony, freed from its association with thinness, would be bound to fatness, fatness to inefficiency, inefficiency to lack of energy and loss of balance, and imbalance to overweight. Society strongly upheld their distaste to fatness by promoting solutions to it through media such as newspapers, books, magazines, and public figures. Mrs. Rohrer, a cook and author, wrote 54 cookbooks. One of her most popular, Philadelphia Cookbook, sold 152,000 copies by 1914. She's been quoted to say, "An excess of flesh is to be looked upon as one of the most objectionable forms of disease and must be treated as such." One answer to fat at the time was via diet. They spread ideas such as avoiding alcohol, malt liquors, potatoes, rice, bread, butter, sweets, and most fatty foods. Getting up from the table hungry, cutting out a meal a day, not nibbling your food, sticking to 40 ounces of food and 55 ounces of water daily. Another method to lose weight that they promoted was through medicines, either patent or prescription. They took digestives, sassafras tea, mineral waters, and obesity tablets combined with caffeine and other chemicals. Does the word Ozempic ring any bells? There was also an inconsistency in dieting regimes and advice given out. Dr. James M. Salisbury studied diets during the Civil War as a nutritional consultant and found that beans were the culprit behind fatness. He decided that even, quote, meat could be dangerous. The remedy to this was hot water and the muscle pulp of lean beef made into cakes and broiled. Salisbury claimed that outside and inside, the fat body was a sick body, so he proposed 3 pounds of lean beef and 6 pints of hot water to patients. But this was too much for women, so Dr. Edward Hooker Dewey popularized the no breakfast plan in 1896. Quote, "Morning hunger was a morbid want. Breakfast, a pleasureless habitual eating which led to indigestion and illness." End quote. Even before the 1900s, fat was becoming stigmatized under the disguise of doctors wanting to cure indigestion. The early thoughts by Salisbury reflect what we see in society today. Yo-yo dieting and trying out new diets like the carnivore diet, keto, and prioritizing high-protein meals. Same with Dr. Dewey. Is skipping breakfast not just another form of intermittent fasting? Or, to step a little bit more forward, isn't that just disordered eating? Another method of losing weight in 1906 seemed to be present-day manifestations. You would tap into your unconscious by saying to yourself, quote, "As the organs of assimilation and elimination are now properly performing their respective duties, the blood is circulating normally, all waste is being carried away, and my weight is decreasing. I am growing lighter and lighter each day. Each week I shall lose 2 pounds. My food is assimilating properly, all waste is being carried off, and I am growing better in every way." End quote. The actual term wellness was popularized in 1950 by Dr. Halbert L. Dunn, who jump-started the movement. He defined it as a condition of change in which the individual moves forward, climbing toward a higher potential of functioning. He discussed the 12 basic needs of man that were essential for one's well-being. They're listed as survival, communication, fellowship, growth, imagination, love, balance, environment, communion with the universal, way of life, dignity, and freedom in space. Wellness is a direction and progress toward the ultimate high level of functioning, and men need all 12 of these things to succeed. He summarized his paper by saying, quote, "To integrate self in a changing world calls for a continuum of reintegration of the self with the full realization of the nature of man and his basic human needs. The challenge posed by the concept of high-level wellness is how to achieve its ends within everyday living and for mankind as a whole. The challenge must be met by both individuals and by society within its various groups, ideologies, races, religions, and cultural patterns." End quote. Meaning, no one is exempt from achieving wellness. Your body is a vessel, and you're in charge of making it as healthy as you can. We're not going to dwindle on Dr. Doan for too long, but the point is, he played a role in connecting personal responsibility, physical appearance, and wellness all together. Not sure if he intended to produce a snowball effect of wellness influencers on TikTok advising their audiences to buy cowboy colostrum, but his preachings clearly resonated with society and became what it is today. Additionally, in lecture, we learned about the origins of healthism, which was coined by Irving Zola, that stated, "Health and healthism was an obligation, a personal responsibility, and largely as the result of human choices." And thus, throughout the 1900s, good health not only became synonymous with physical appearance, but the personal responsibility of having to maintain your appearance yourself. You are in charge of your body. Do you notice how familiar these slimming practices sound? That's because we're currently experiencing this. In the paper Tons of Useful Stuff by Carol Ann Farkas, she researches heavily into the role of 3 prominent health and wellness magazines: Self, Men's Health, and Bicycling. She found that in all 3 magazines, while reading through their mission statements on websites, she concluded that their mission was to help readers reach their full potential. They consult experts and aim to improve the lives of their readers. And how so? By giving advice like trying out new makeup, buying new clothes, using a fitness app to track your calories and workouts, and trying new diets. Even so-called alternative magazines she found, like Natural Health or Yoga Journal, promoted vitamins and probiotics. I really do recommend reading her entire article, which can be accessed through the UCSD library. But the bottom line is, all 3 of these magazines synthesized health as wealth. You, at your best, must be eating well, training well, and thus looking the part. Health is slenderness, health is beauty, and health is preventing weight gain. The author says, thus, in some women's wellness magazines, Shape and Fitness, eating and working out are rarely done simply for fun, for aesthetic, social, or physical gratification. The goal is to get prettier, which usually means getting smaller. Some advice from the publications from Self magazine include intuitive eating, avoid eating in front of the TV so you don't overeat, eat slower, and really reflect on the foods you eat. All of their advice promotes dropping a few sizes because they know that's why their audience is reading these magazines in the first place. But as I said before, their goal was to help readers achieve total well-being. Even the Bicycling magazine. Guest speakers aren't coming on here saying, "I bike 200 miles and I feel physically, mentally, and emotionally amazing." No. They're saying, "Hey, I lost 300 pounds and this is how I did it." A passage reads this: "Each issue of the magazine certainly contains earnest items on optimal nutrition for training, taking for granted that readers will want both natural foods and the most scientifically cutting-edge, artificially engineered forms of supplements, bars, gels, and drinks. These magazines simultaneously sell you a lifestyle that everyone wants, but also the newest products you must buy to achieve it." Going back to Dunn and his 12 basic needs for a little bit, we can catch a glimpse into why these consumers feel that way. They're being told that ownership of their own bodies means taking care of it in the best way that you can. This article is from 2010, before those smartphones and technology started ruining our lives. Now we're seeing wellness influencers who almost always have no credentials advising their audience on how to start a wellness lifestyle. It makes me think about what we're mindlessly consuming as consumers of media. If you think about it, most forms of hobbies we all have is just consuming media. Watching new TV shows you want to catch up on, reading books, going to the movies, listening to podcasts. Therefore, what are we teaching our society? What values do we uphold and don't care to change? Clearly, wanting all of society to be healthy has always been a priority, even before the 1900s. But we need to change the narrative in what healthy looks like. Not only is the media perpetuating this belief, but I want to add my own personal anecdote. Around the time I turned 16, I realized I started gaining weight pretty fast and went to my pediatrician for advice, scared it was a hormonal issue. In our 2-minute conversation, her only advice to me was to stop eating carbs. Mind you, I was a child, I was 16. I wish I was kidding. Doctors in the 1900s advertised these preachings as well. In Schwartz's reading I mentioned earlier, Schwartz mentioned that Dr. E.S. McKee of Cincinnati made these recommendations in 1891, over a century ago. Dr. McKee said, treatment requires, of course, rigid diet. Hydrocarbons, which, aka carbs, must be eliminated to give place to albanoids, aka proteins. Alcohol must be interdicted. Exercise, household duties, gymnastics, or massage cannot be neglected. He also advised laxatives, sea baths, and mineral waters in hydropathy. This was in 1891. Magazines, social media, our own doctors, etc., are tying health with physical appearance, and they've been doing it for decades, over a century even. I also wanted to add a few more points and related topics as I close. We can also transcend into the whole other universe of the concept of aging. Society isn't just anti-fat, anti-obesity, but they're also anti-aging. Taking care of your body can manifest in forms like buying expensive skincare products that get rid of wrinkles and smile lines, consuming more magnesium, lowering your blood sugar and BMI, and buying gua shas to smooth out the puffiness in your face when you've woken up in the morning. I think wellness ties into anti-aging pretty heavily because society is obsessed with youth. Also, technology is constantly growing, but the same ideas are being constantly recycled. We're really just finding new things to be insecure about. Think back to Mrs. Rohr and her cookbook that sold thousands and thousands of copies throughout the States. It has been over a century of this wellness culture and upholding it. Eating clean, fat phobia, that whole cycle. Arguably, it's gotten pretty worse. The recent upsurge of wellness influencers posed the debate about expanding medical authority, meaning, do these influencers have the right to educate others on what to do with their bodies? Especially being paid for it, big bucks. Some people who spread the wellness culture use medical rhetoric and evidence to persuade people to change certain aspects of their lifestyle. But who in society is allowed to start a podcast and sell vitamins? I also have a counter argument. To clarify, I think there are nuances and complexities I haven't even begun to touch the surface on. For one, there's the importance of community. To some people with chronic health issues, the wellness lifestyle and online community is their sanctuary. There's a whole other side of wellness too. Wellness can include journaling, digital detoxing, decluttering, and prioritizing sleep. Also, what is and isn't backed up by science? If we all ate the exact same things and exercised the exact same way, our bodies would still be different. What does it mean to be healthy, and why does it vary so much from person to person? The wellness community intertwines with the alternative medicine community as well. Will we ever live through another shift in paradigms, or will the biomedical model we currently live in persist for another century? There is so much to expand on with this topic, but in the end, I want to conclude this here. There is simply so much danger in associating someone's physical outward appearance with the person's health. However, I'll leave this here. I can find a silver lining. I think people have become more aware than ever. There are trends right now on social media where people point out propaganda they're not falling for, and more people are not subscribing to harmful social norms. It could also be the fact that no one can afford organic groceries anymore in this political climate, but I'll take what I can get.